A cordial greeting. Today is Sunday, October 20th, 2024. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia. At the time of recording this video, it is 7:45 a.m. local time in eastern Cuba, where preparations should be wrapping up to face Hurricane Oscar, which will arrive this afternoon in the provinces of Guantánamo, Santiago de Cuba, and Holguín. These areas will experience hurricane conditions and torrential rains capable of causing significant flooding and landslides. So, I will be providing details on the forecast for Hurricane Oscar and how it will continue to affect the Turks and Caicos Islands, the southern Bahamas, and eastern Cuba. On another note, and briefly, I wanted to mention that Tropical Depression Nadine is now over parts of the state of Chiapas. Yesterday, Tropical Storm Nadine made landfall over Belize and moved over northern parts of Guatemala, bringing heavy rains to this region, including some states in the Yucatan Peninsula. In the infrared satellite animation, we can see the instability associated with the circulation of Tropical Depression Nadine, which today will move into the waters of the eastern Pacific, where it may encounter favorable conditions for reorganization. However, the most important thing is that today, heavy showers will continue across some states, including Quintana Roo, Campeche, Tabasco, Veracruz, Chiapas, and Oaxaca, where flooding could occur over the next 48 hours. It will also continue to rain in parts of Belize and Guatemala, so it is important for people living in these areas to stay in safe places and away from flood-prone zones, at least until tomorrow, Monday. Here you can see the projected accumulated rainfall over the next 48 hours for parts of the state of Tabasco, northern Chiapas, eastern Oaxaca, and central and southern Veracruz. Between 100 to 200 millimeters of rainfall is expected today and tomorrow, Monday. Additionally, between 60 and 100 millimeters of rain could fall in Quintana Roo and Belize, on top of what has already impacted the region. Now, let's take a look at the trajectory projections. Models agree that in the next 24 hours, the center of circulation will move into the eastern Pacific waters. Fortunately, by tomorrow, Monday, it will take a turn toward the west or west-northwest, moving away from the coast of Mexico. In fact, conditions will be favorable for the formation of a powerful hurricane. Here is the infrared satellite projection according to the GFS model, which shows that by the end of the week, a major hurricane develops, but it remains far from the coast of Mexico. There is even a possibility that if the circulation of Tropical Depression Nadine survives its journey into the eastern Pacific, it could retain the name Nadine as a storm or hurricane. There have been few tropical cyclones that have managed to cross from the Atlantic to the Pacific, but it has happened in recent history. Now then, let's talk about Hurricane Oscar, which is currently over some of the southern islands of the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands, where they have been receiving direct impacts from this hurricane for the last 24 hours. It surprised us yesterday because it went through a rapid intensification process in the morning hours. However, it has maintained relatively constant intensity for the past 24 hours, but it directly affected some of the Turks and Caicos Islands. It is now over the Inagua Islands in the southern Bahamas, where the center of circulation crossed during the night. They should currently be experiencing hurricane-force winds and torrential rains, but the circulation has moved away from the island and is now heading toward the provinces of Holguín and Guantánamo, where it will arrive this afternoon and evening. Remember that the circulation of Hurricane Oscar remains very small, which makes it susceptible to significant changes in intensity, either rapid weakening or rapid strengthening. Therefore, we cannot rule out rapid strengthening over the next 12 hours before it reaches eastern Cuba. In general, the trajectory projections agree that the center of circulation will enter eastern and northeastern Cuba and remain in this region for approximately 24 to 48 hours, which could result in significant rainfall and windy conditions for an extended period, potentially causing considerable damage to areas in eastern Cuba, including the provinces of Holguín, Santiago de Cuba, and Guantánamo. Although there is some uncertainty regarding how strong it might be when it reaches Cuba due to its small circulation, intensity models predict that it should maintain hurricane status as a Category 1 storm with maximum sustained winds of 80 to 85 miles per hour, 130 to 145 kilometers per hour. Once it moves over Cuba, this area's high mountains will help weaken the cyclone quickly while it remains over the island. However, eventually, as it moves north-northeast, it may reorganize once again between Tuesday and Wednesday before impacting the southern Bahamas. Now, let's look at the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. A hurricane warning remains in effect for the southern Bahamas, and a tropical storm warning is still in effect for the Turks and Caicos Islands. A hurricane warning is also in place for the coastal areas of eastern and northeastern Cuba, particularly for the provinces of Las Tunas, Holguín, and Guantánamo. Additionally, a tropical storm warning is in effect for Santiago de Cuba and parts of Camagüey. The National Hurricane Center forecasts that the center of circulation will reach Cuba around 2 p.m. local time and then move slowly west-northwest over a 36-hour period. It's not until the early hours of Tuesday that it may move back into the Atlantic waters. Eventually, between Tuesday and Wednesday, it will take a northeast trajectory, affecting some of the southern islands of the Bahamas, where new tropical storm warnings may be issued. Let's now take a look at the conditions expected in Cuba and the Bahamas over the next 3 days, starting with the GFS model projections. Hurricane force winds of over 130 km per hour may impact areas between Santiago de Cuba, Guantánamo, Holguín, and the city of Baracoa. The reddish and pink areas show the hurricane force winds affecting this region. This is the projection of wind gusts according to the American model GFS, which shows that as the trajectory crosses the mountains of Cuba, the circulation dissipates before re-entering the eastern Atlantic waters. This would be the worst-case scenario for eastern Cuba because it would cause an extreme rainfall event. But it's the best-case scenario for the southern Bahamas as the circulation may dissipate over Cuban territory. In addition to the wind, the American model shows extreme rainfall accumulation over eastern Cuba, especially between Santiago de Cuba and Baracoa. This model predicts that over 900 millimeters of rain could fall in a period of 24 to 36 hours. It is very important for people living in Guantánamo, Holguín, Santiago de Cuba, and Baracoa to prepare for a major flooding event and evacuate if they live in flood-prone areas. We also have the projection from the European model. It shows a very similar trajectory to the GFS model, with the only difference being that it does not dissipate the circulation over eastern Cuba, allowing Oscar to affect the southern Bahamas as a tropical storm on Tuesday. The European model also shows excessive rainfall accumulation over the next 36 hours, particularly for eastern Cuba and the southern Bahamas, where it predicts 150 to 400 millimeters of rainfall. Once again, the most concerning factor is the rain, especially in eastern Cuba. Well, that's all for this forecast update. I will record a new video in the afternoon or evening to update any changes in the forecasts. So, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and don't forget to click the bell to receive notifications when I upload new videos. Now I say goodbye, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.